Shalom. The poorest people on earth. Who do you think are truly the poorest people on earth? You know, people will always look at these poor people in these sub-Saharan African nations and stuff like that, with the children with the big swollen bellies and stuff like that. Yeah, those people are very poor out there. They definitely are. But when you think about wealth, true wealth, I think we've had our notions of wealth skewered, manipulated, altered. This has been done to get people to be satisfied with being truly poor. See, when you ask people what they consider wealth, the very first thing they're going to look to is material possessions, gadgets and gizmos, cars, clothing, jewelry, and lastly, homes, property. Now, out of all those things, the closest thing to true wealth would probably be property. According to scripture, all the wealthy people in scripture had one thing in common. Well, two things in common. They all had a bunch of livestock, and they had a bunch of land to house that livestock. See, true wealth is not the gadgets, the gizmos, the cars, the clothing, the jewelry, or not even the homes. True wealth is space. It's real estate. True wealth is how much space on this planet can you say belongs to you? How much space on this planet can you say is yours? That's a question people need to ask themselves. And that's why when it comes to the poorest people on this planet, we should not be looking at these people in these sub-Saharan African areas of the world or impoverished Indian areas of the world that we always see on television with the flies and stuff buzzing around their faces and stuff. When we consider the poorest people on earth, the only place we should be looking is right into the mirror. That's when we'll see the poorest people on earth. Because despite being hungry, despite being ravaged by disease, those people in those areas of the world, they have one thing that we Israelites don't have. They have space that they can call their own on this planet. Now, you can talk until you're blue in the face about the condition of the space that they live on. You can talk about how bad they do it, or how they don't treat it like they should, or how they're not getting the most out of it. You know, we can talk about that all day long, but the reality is this: that space, that land, it is theirs. It is something that they can say belongs to them. A spot on this planet that acts as their anchor. That's their space. That's their spot. Now, when you look at us here in America, you see majority of us live in inner cities. And probably the majority of that percentage that lives in the inner cities lives in apartments, rental property. So those people, that majority of us, even where they lay their head, they cannot say that that is theirs. Even where the place where they keep all their possessions, they cannot say that spot on this planet is theirs. It's not. It belongs to whoever owns the apartment complex or whoever you're paying lease to. That's the reality of our situation. Majority of us don't even have a square inch of real estate on this planet. Majority of us don't even have a square inch of space on this planet that we could say is ours. So according to scripture, we are by far the poorest people on this planet. When you consider those people that are fleeing from their plights in South America, even those people are more wealthy than us. Because they're fleeing their land. Their land. Their space. Now, this is something that I'm pretty sure a lot of people have thought about. But it also shows how the very nature of this civilization we live in is all about getting us to not look at what's relevant, to keep you from considering what truly matters. You know, what's the use of having a bunch of gadgets and gizmos when you don't even have a space on this planet to call your own? Now, when you consider that, it starts to put into a whole nother light. It starts to make sense why the whole 30 acres and a mule thing never came about. Because we were meant to be kept poor. See, if we were all given that 30 acres and a mule back then, you know, we would have had some wealth. We would have had what is considered true wealth. A space on this planet. A space that we can say belongs to us. But since we didn't get that, so now, many years later, the result is obvious. And it really should put into light the heinousness of those who would toil to prevent us from getting any kind of land for ourselves, for our people as a nation. These are people that want to keep us the poorest people on this planet. It's pretty darn heinous if you ask me. But land is on a lot of our minds now. That's what I've noticed. A whole lot of us are talking about land. But things are getting kind of hairy when it comes to that talk. You know, the confusion is ramping up. The seeds of confusion have been sown, and you can see the plants starting to grow. There are people who have created all sorts of scenarios, all sorts of doctrines, all sorts of interpretations. And it seems like it has gotten to the point where the interpretations don't even need to have any relation to the foundation of what it is to be an Israelite, and that foundation being the Tanakh. There are doctrines and interpretations that basically say if the Tanakh should not even be considered because it's contradicting this new interpretation, this new doctrine. I mean, it's no mystery that our enemies are going to attempt to paint us as terrorists. Well, they've already done that via the FBI, black identity extremists, but they're going to really try to push this notion that we are a people who are trying to steal something, that we're a people that are trying to take something from its rightful owners. And one thing that should be considered about all that is how can anybody in our state, the poorest people on this planet, take anything from anyone? Any progress that our movement makes, it truly is a force behind it, something that this planet hasn't seen move like this. It's not happenstance. It's not a conspiracy theory. We are 13% of the population of this country of America. We are, by definition of given by the Bible, the poorest people on this planet, because we do not have a land of origin. Yet still, how can such a people steal anything from anyone? That's the thing people need to consider when these accusations start getting thrown around. Well, they've been thrown around for a long time, but they're going to get thrown around even more. It's going to get louder and louder and louder as our people become more and more aware. Land is the true wealth on this planet. It truly is. You could have all the gold in the world, but if you are having to lease the space in which you keep it, it really doesn't matter. The richest person is the person that owns the space where you keep your gold. Those are the richest people. Because if they wanted to, they could just one day say, hey, that gold is mine. It's on my property. It belongs to me. That's why land has always been battled over on this planet. That's why land has always been fought over on this planet. Even to this very day, it still is fought over. Because it is the true wealth of this planet. If you don't have a space of your own, you're leasing someone else's space. Which means all they have to do is sit there and breathe. They don't have to do nothing else. If you on their land, you having to pay them to be on their land. There's no better gig than that. It don't get no better than that. That's like having somebody pay you just for the privilege of living. They're paying you just so that they may live. Because if you don't have a space on this planet, where are you gonna go? If you don't have a space on this planet and you ain't willing to live on someone else's space, land, where are you going? You know? You can't go in outer space. You know? Hell, in the way these people want to do things, even if you could go into outer space, they trying to take over space. They trying to take over the moon. And they trying to take over Mars. So even if your ass could go to outer space, you land on Mars, got to pay rent. But I thought this was a deserted planet. Nah, we've been here. We've been here, and we don't put up all these buildings, and now you got to pay rent to us because that land you're standing on belongs to us. So that's the reality of it all. We are truly the poorest people on this planet. We have no true identity. Well, we do have one, but it's highly contested. You know, we're having to fight tooth and nail to try to get it back. We have no land as of now. So we are truly the poorest people on this planet. And there are truly people on this planet. There's truly a concerted effort amongst our enemies to keep us the poorest people on this planet. But the thing I always look to for hope is the notion of things working in a cycle. As a cycle turns, seasons come and go. From day to night to night to day. So if you've had bad luck during the daytime, you can always hope that nighttime will be a little bit better. That's what keeps me going. Those who thrive at night sleep during the day. The people who thrive during the day sleep at night. That means the people that suffered during the day, they rule at night. The people who suffered at night, they rule during the day. I think it's a reasonable belief. When you look around you, you can see examples of it all throughout reality. The poorest people on earth, or they become the richest people this planet has ever seen. Shalom.